Off the coast of Cape Ann lies Thacher Island, which contains the last fully operated twin lighthouses in America. A Frenchman named Samuel de Champlain, in July of 1605, while he was sailing south from Cape Porpoise, Maine, first noted Thacher Island and its two sister islands. It was almost a decade before the islands were again noted. This time, Thacher Island and its sister islands were spotted by John Smith. He named them the Three Turk Heads, after three Turkish soldiers he killed while being held captive by Turkish men. Later, as colonial shipping grew, many mariners urged for a lighthouse to be built on the island after many shipwrecks had occurred close by. And soon, two new 45-foot towers were built and illuminated on December 2, 1771. The lighthouses were particularly important because they were the first to be built to mark a dangerous spot out at sea. It was to mark off the Londoner Reef, a troublesome spot for ships about a half-mile off the southeastern shore. Two lighthouses were built to mark the difference between Thacher Island and the nearest single lighthouse of the Boston Light in Boston Harbor. Many years have gone by and still ships continue to pass the lighthouses, as many as 70,000 vessels. Because of the continued importance of the lighthouses, Congress approved for the lighthouses to be replaced with new 124-foot towers, and on October 1, 1861, the new towers were illuminated for the first time, and they still are today. But first, let's go back and see how this island got its name. Anthony Thacher and his cousin set out from Ipswich, England on August 11, 1635, along with their families to head to Marblehead, New England. Avery, Anthony's cousin, was called to be a pastor for a church soon to be built there. Though resentful, the men got on the ship named Watch and Wait, along with 21 others. Avery had 11 in his family, while Anthony had 7, and there were 5 mariners. On the 14th of August, at 10 o'clock at night, great winds were brewing at sea. The mariners, tired, did not want to fix the sails. Instead, they put down an anchor in hopes the ship would be still until the morning. But the storm continued to get worse. The mariners continued to let out rope for the anchor, but happened to let out too much and the anchor got lost completely. Soon the waves thrashed the boat until it hit between what seemed to be two rocks. This hit to the ship caused water to flow into it. As the families feared for their lives, they huddled together. Before they knew it, water was up to their knees. The ship then suddenly split into 3 pieces, sending the crew and families out into the stormy ocean. Anthony watched as his young children were tossed around into the waves and eventually drowned. He found his cousin and grabbed him in an attempt to make it to shore together. But quickly his cousin as well was swept into sea. Eventually, Anthony found a rock that he pulled himself onto. As he stood on his feet, he looked around to see if any of his family was still out struggling at sea. But he saw only his wife, who quickly after him got herself onto the rock, along with her husband. The two were the only survivors of that horrible crash. Only one body was found, the 12-year-old niece of Anthony. She was buried on the island. Both were cold and drenched and had been badly bruised. A dead goat, along with a sack filled with gunpowder and some clothes, were washed on shore later. This helped the couple stay alive until a few days later, when they were rescued and brought to Marblehead. When leaving the island, Anthony Thacher named the island Thacher Woe after his tragic losses. The Massachusetts Bay Colony found out about the horrible story, and in reward for their losses were given the island. Though Anthony and his wife never lived on the island remained in the Thacher family for 80 years. But then the family decided to give up the island. Thacher Island was then sold to a local Gloucester family in 1714. It was sold to Reverend John White for £100. This family kept the island until 1771, when Joseph Allen sold it back to the colony of Massachusetts for £500. The island was then permanently known as Thacher Island. The island was now in ownership of a greater power. This was the time that colonial shipping was growing, and many ships started to pass the island and crash into the dangerous spots nearby. So to keep ships and the passengers and cargo on board safe, lighthouses of Thacher Island were first built and first illuminated on December 2, 1771. Once the lighthouses were built, someone needed to keep the lighthouses running each night and take care of the island. These people are called the keepers. In the beginning, the keepers had an extremely difficult job. Lighthouses were lit each night, so every night the keeper would have to climb up 156 steps to each lighthouse. They would then have to trim the wicks and add more oil to the lamp to keep the fire burning. The keeper would then have to clean off the lens and the glass. In the wintertime, the keeper would often have to chip off ice from the glass. This process was repeated every 4 hours, no matter what the weather was. Though the work of maintaining the island is easier with new technology, keepers to this day remain on the island and keep Thacher Island and its lighthouses running. They live in houses built on the island and are dedicated to their work. Each love and appreciate the island and the many visitors. The lights of the lighthouses on Thacher Island shine each night for years to guide sailors and their crews to safety. They help bring people and goods to keep our early country running. These lighthouses and the island are an important part of Massachusetts history and the history of the United States of America. Thacher Island should and will be honored for many generations for people to see and experience.